Maryland basketball will land four-star Sebastian Wilkins.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys all for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Maryland basketball is going to land four-star Sebastian Wilkins tomorrow. I feel really good about Maryland basketball landing four-star Sebastian Wilkins, who I think is going to be a really good player for the Terps. I talked about it a couple days ago, but there's a lot to get into with this kid. There's a lot to talk about with Sebastian Wilkins, and I'm excited to see exactly what his decision is because, like I said, I think he will end up choosing Maryland. I think Maryland is going to be the spot that Sebastian Wilkins, the four-star product, ends up going to, and I think it's going to be a really good choice. So there's a whole different dimension that last time I talked about Sebastian Wilkins that I actually didn't get into about Sebastian and what he actually can become for the Terps and kind of his player style, like what he's going to do. But I think there's one thing in particular that I didn't talk about that I want to talk about. But Sebastian Wilkins does make his decision tomorrow, which is interesting. But it's really between Maryland and Duke. So we got the blue blood Duke, who had an awesome year last year, one of the better Duke teams that I think we've seen is what a lot of people wanted to say. A lot of people said if they won the national championship, they'd be one of the best Duke teams ever. And I thought that was honestly pretty fair, but definitely a Duke team that's a Duke blood that's pretty much the standard of college basketball. There's not a lot of programs that you would put up above Duke right now. I don't know if there's any program that you would put ahead of Duke at this point in time. Just a really solid program, obviously one of the leads in terms of recruiting and all those different things. And like I said last episode or 2 episodes ago, the fact that you're in it with Duke for this kid, it shows a really good sign because it's not like it's some mid-major you're battling Sebastian Wilkins for, or even somewhere like kind of a mid-tier ACC or Big Ten. Like it's Duke. Everybody wants to go to Duke, and they only probably have, 4 or 5 kids that they're going to bring in every class. And so the fact that you're in competition with Duke tells you a lot about the kid, tells you that the kid's a high-level player, tells you that he's pretty elite already, and that you're definitely going on the right track if you're competing with Duke. But less about Duke, more about us. The reason I think that Sebastian Wilkins is going to head to Maryland. One, I think his relationship with Buzz Williams is really great. He developed it clearly at Texas A&M, and I talked about it yesterday that you want to be able to continue to develop these recruiting and these transfer portals when kids get in the portal. You want to be nice as a coach. You want to value that relationship. You want to treat them all almost the same, no matter if you think that kid's going to go to your school or not, because you never know when a kid turns around or a kid's going to end up committing somewhere else or whatever the case is. And that's kind of the situation with Sebastian Wilkins is he didn't know Buzz Williams was going to leave for Maryland. And in today's world, it's honestly, it could be to a lot of kids, it's more about the actual coach. It's more about the NIL money than it is actually about the school. And I'm not saying that's the case for Sebastian Wilkins, but I am saying that he developed clearly a good relationship with Buzz Williams. And I think it's a big reason why I think Maryland's going to beat out Duke for Sebastian Wilkins, the 6'8" forward. He goes to Brewster Academy, which is a powerhouse high school. Definitely a lot of really good players play there, but I definitely think that Maryland is in a good spot for Sebastian Wilkins. Also, when you look at Duke's recruiting class, when you look at Duke's depth chart, when you look at who Duke just committed, I think there's a big tell that that Sebastian Wilkins is going to have a lot better of a chance to play here at Maryland early and often. That's just the way it is. When you look at Duke's roster, they just have more guys that they played, and they got a kid today that's one of the top international prospects in this kid, Dame Sar, who actually committed like not too long ago at all. He's an Italian wing, is a little bit similar to actually Sebastian Wilkins in a lot of different ways, but this kid's supposed to be a really solid player. 247 actually has him rated as a 5-star guy, and he's 6'7", 190 pounds, and Kansas was after him, Illinois was after him, Oregon was after him, but they have him rated as a 5-star international prospect, so he's definitely a guy that literally committed to Duke like 20:30 when you guys are watching this, probably a couple hours ago. So I do think that that's part of the decision that's going to be made for Sebastian Wilkins. And I'm not trying to say that Maryland's roster isn't in a good spot, but Duke just has a little bit more talent, and I think that's fair to say. And it's just more of a clear picture for Maryland in terms of a guy like Sebastian Wilkins coming in and playing early on, while Duke has a bunch of different guys on their team, and they had a top 2 recruiting class, top 3 recruiting class. They're bringing in Cameron Boozer. They're bringing in this other power forward, 6'8", Nicholas. I don't want to say his last name, Kamina. They're bringing in Dame Star. Like, they're bringing in guys, and I think it's going to be tougher for Sebastian Wilkins to crack the lineup for Duke and to play right away. And then also you're bringing back Isaiah Evans. You're bringing back Darren Harris, who's a DMV prospect who didn't play at all. So it's just kind of like, where does the minutes fit in for Sebastian Wilkins? Quite frankly, I think is more of a pathway to play right away for Maryland. And I do think Maryland's has a really solid roster as well. It's not like he's coming somewhere where we're bad. I think Buzz Williams has assembled a really good roster. Now, some of you guys might be questioning, what's the deal with him being a 2026? Or why are you talking about this year with Duke? Half those Duke guys are going to be gone next year. It does sound like I still honestly don't know what he's going to do. I think that there's a really solid chance, is what I'm hearing, is that Sebastian Wilkins ends up reclassifying up. Not down, but up to the 2025 class, and he could immediately come in for Maryland basketball. Now, I don't know quite if he's ready for that. I don't know if he's a guy that is going to want to do that, but that, I think, is part of the appeal of a Maryland versus a Duke, is if he reclassifies up, we're not reclassifying up to sit. That's not why we're reclassifying up. We're reclassifying to play a lot, and like I said about Duke, they got a lot of different guys on the roster that are back. Isaiah Evans is back. Caleb Foster is back. Dame Star, who's the top international prospect, is in at that 3 spot. Darren Harris, who didn't play a ton last year, was a top prospect. Like I said, a DMV kid, went to Paul VI. He's back. He's going to be accepting a role. And then you assume guys, their recruiting class, you assume guys like Cameron Boozer, who's the number 3 ranked player nationally. You assume he's probably going to get some time. They have another 5-star in Nicholas Kamina at the same position. You bring in 2 5-stars at the same position that Sebastian Wilkins plays. It's just, I think, going to be tough for him to be able to get on the court. That's just the way I see it. So we'll see exactly what he ends up doing. But to me, I just think that Maryland is the school for him, and I think that's what his decision will come down to. Now, I don't know exactly what's going to happen. The decision is made tomorrow. I don't know exactly what is he going to choose, what he's going to end up being, what he's going to end up doing. I'm not 100% sure, but I feel pretty confident that it's going to be Maryland. And when we look around at some of the recruiting websites, a lot of people are kind of favoring Maryland ever so slightly. On 247, it does say Duke and Maryland is warm. But if you look at On 3, which I looked at yesterday, Maryland was actually the favorite a little bit. Maryland's nearly up to 40% predicted. Duke's at 34.7. And there's some other schools below that. But at this point, we can't really count on the other schools. It sounds like it's a two-way race. But I do want to say if Buzz Williams ends up getting a guy like Sebastian Wilkins, another guy next to Darius Adams, a 5-star, and you get Sebastian Wilkins, who's a really high-end 4-star, that's a really good start. That's a really good start for Buzz Williams recruiting nationally. I talked about this a little bit before, but the fact that Buzz Williams isn't just getting DMV guys and is getting people nationally is really exciting because the DMV is huge. There's plenty of players to dig into, but you're just not going to get everyone, and your ceiling just goes up more when you're able to get more guys that aren't just DMV players. So I do think that could help the Terps a lot, getting a guy like Sebastian Wilkins, like I said, but just having more range of getting guys from all over the place, whether it's Darius Adams or there's Sebastian Wilkins, having that more range, I think will allow the Terps to hit another territory that they haven't had. But I don't know. In terms of ranking, he's ranked as a high-level player in the 2026 class. I think if he moved up to the 2025 class, I think he'd be hovering about around the same. Maybe you drop a little bit, like in the 40-ish. But either way, he's the guy we want. If he decides to commit to Maryland and he's 2026, I wouldn't be able to complain too much about it. If he decided to reclassify up to the 2025 class, I'd be really excited about him joining Darius Adams in a really solid freshman class that I think has a chance to make an impact right away. 2 guys, 4 or 5-star players that have a chance to do some really good things for the Terps. But if he ends up committing to Duke, whether it's a 2025 or a 2026, I'll tell you, I'll be annoyed by it. I just will. We'll see exactly what happens. I do hope Maryland ends up being the place, and I do think there's a good chance that Maryland ends up being the spot. Like I said, I think he'll choose Maryland, but Duke's definitely still in the running, so we'll see. He probably has his mind made up by now, I would think, with the decision coming tomorrow, but I'll update you guys tomorrow depending on what time he decides to do that, but I'm assuming it's not super late. So I'll talk about that more tomorrow and see kind of what is going on with that. Mike Locksley is accused of tampering. Why I'm honestly okay with it. I'll talk about that next. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been more time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay on the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. There's so many different things you guys can do on FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing tonight. You got the Western Conference. You got OKC and the Timberwolves. You can bet on SGA over, Edwards over, whatever you guys want to do on FanDuel. You guys can go ahead and do that. So make sure you guys head over to FanDuel to be able to do that. Or it's the MLB season as well. There's so many different games. Whether you're a Maryland sports fan, you want to bet on the Orioles, you want to bet on the Nationals, whatever you want to do. And of course, the hockey playoffs as well. If you want to bet the Oilers to win the cup or whatever the case is, you guys can do that over on FanDuel. If you're new to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So there's a really interesting story that I was reading about Maryland football, and Mike Locksley actually got called out by the Richmond head coach for tampering, which I think is really interesting. And we know that we're in this NIL era. But before I go into that, I want to say I'm honestly not mad. Even if Mike Locksley tampered a little bit, I'm not mad at all. And I'll explain a little bit, but I just want to explain the story a little bit more. But Mike Locksley got called out. The Maryland football head coach, as you guys all know, got called out Mike Locksley for actually tampering with their kicker, Sean O'Hare, who apparently got $50,000 to go play at Maryland. He said, Maryland tampered with our kicker and gave him $50,000. They came in and they tampered. The kid had zero interest in transferring, and they offered him money. It happens all over the country, and there's nothing the NCAA is going to do about it. So I think this is a really interesting story, and there's definitely some truth to it. I would be surprised if a lot of it wasn't true. I think there's definitely some truth to it. I think it's a good thing. It might sound bad for me. It might sound not ethical, but that's what today's college football is. And there's a saying, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And honestly, I think that's kind of what Maryland has to do. We're not a blue blood. We're not a Bama. We're not a Georgia. We're not one of these big programs with boatloads of money. Obviously, we have some sort of money because we're getting a Richmond kicker. We're paying $50,000, which in the grand scheme of things sounds like a lot of money. But compared to some of these other deals that some people are getting, and definitely some higher level types of guys, like some of these other players are getting some of these deals, but still compared to some of the deals that some of these guys are getting, 50,000 is definitely a good chunk of change, but nothing crazy. But I think this is what Mike Locksley and the Maryland staff has to do a little bit. You got to be sneaky at it. You got to find the loopholes in it. You can't be all over the place and sloppy with it. But to get the guys that you want to get, you just have to show them the money. That's the way today's college football is. And there's been a million cases of tampering. There has. And I don't need to get into any specific case because you guys know there are so many of them that are out there. And some probably have happened to Maryland players. And if you're going to stay competitive, if you're going to stay decent, especially a team like Maryland, like I said, we're not a blue blood. We're not just going to get guys just to get guys and to compete with some of the NIL that some of these top programs have, and even some of these middle programs have. Like some of these middle programs have a lot of money to spend, and they're going to take advantage of that, and they're going to become better. You're going to have to do a little bit about this. And I'm sorry for Richmond if the kid wasn't planning on transferring. It's also Big Ten football versus playing in the conference that Richmond does. Like that's a big difference. He's going on a bigger stage. He's going to play in front of a lot more people. He's also going to get a lot more recognition. It made sense for him to go to Maryland, I think. So I'm not really mad at it at all. Even if it's tampering, whatever the case is, everyone's doing it now. And if you just don't, you're going to fall behind. You just are. That's how today's college football works. That's how the transfer portal works. So it's just too hard not to do it. But to continue the quote, he said, So Maryland just decided to come in. They liked their kicker and offered him money. It's ridiculous. It's pretty frustrating. He's got an unbelievable future. This was not on him. This was on Maryland. This was on his handlers. It was on a lot of people that I'm not real happy with. So he's definitely pretty upset about that, which understandably so. A kicker is important. That wins or loses you maybe a game or two in the season, which is a big difference in college football. Could end up being more than 1 or 2 games. Could end up being like 3 games. If you have a good kicker, what you can do is just a lot more. At the end of the game, it's a lot easier. Even during the games, there's just a lot more you can do. And I'm not surprised Maryland offered $50,000 for a kicker. And if that is true, which this story might not be completely true, but if it's true, then you have kind of an idea of what Maryland's throwing around. They throw around $50,000 for a kicker, so you get kind of a better idea of what they're probably doing for some of these other players, which we'll talk about another day. But I do think that it's really interesting. I think it's a really interesting story, and I wanted to talk about it. I don't hate it at all. If you're going to get the players that you need, if you're going, whatever the case is, this is the way that college football is. And until the rule gets fixed for everybody, it's just what has to happen if you're a Big Ten team like Maryland that wants to stay at least somewhat decent or at least somewhat competitive. That's just the way it is. And I'm not going to blame Mike Locksley for it. I'm not going to blame anyone on the Maryland staff for it. It sucks when it happens to us, but what are we going to do? Sit here and play the moral game and play ethically and hope that we end up not getting smacked by Michigan, who has $1 million, or I should say like a $30 million roster? Like, we're not going to play that game. And so you got to play the game, and you can't hate the player, hate the game. So that's all I got to say about that. But let's talk about the Maryland linebacking room. who realistically has a shot of stepping up in that room? We'll talk about that next. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online, shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery, and now I build it smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever, and you can track shared and personal accounts and set goals and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances now with monarchmoney.com. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. So I want to talk about Maryland's linebacker room. Who do I think actually can make an impact? We lost some big-time names, our two best guys, I would say, in Kellen Wyatt, and then we also lost Caleb Wheatland, two guys that have played a good amount of football for Maryland. So I want to talk about who I think can actually step in and help us this year. It's got to be the year of Michael Harris. Michael Harris was a 4-star recruit. I was really excited about him coming in. There was a little graphic. It was like top incoming freshman a couple years ago when he was a freshman, and he was on that graphic, and it was like each team's impact freshman, and he was on that graphic. And I think we've seen him make strides. I think we've seen him do some things. I don't think we've seen him at quite the level that I think we're going to see him hit this year. I think Michael Harris is probably the guy that has stepped up the most and the guy that I trust the most. I think he has talent. I think he has what it takes. He's never been the biggest dude, but he's a really talented football player. So I do think that he can do it. It's just about him actually doing it and putting it together. But he also hasn't had a full opportunity. But I saw flashes of it last year. I saw flashes when he played a little bit freshman year. He's got all the talent. He's got the speed. He's got the sideline stuff. He's probably the guy in the linebacking room that I'm most excited about. I think he can play a similar – I don't think he's what Jason Barham was. Jason Barham was a different cat in terms of his athleticism, in terms of his traits, in terms of what he was going to be, and what he is now at Michigan. He's a different cat, but I think he's probably one of the closer things that we've had, him and Ruben Hippolyte, to Jason Barham. I think that he is a lot similar to Ruben Hippolyte, a little bit undersized, but makes up for a lot of sideline to sideline speed. And if you look at Ruben Hippolyte, that's a reason he got drafted to the Bears, is because some of his speed that he has. And I really do think that Michael Harris is a lot of the same way. And then there's other names on that list for Maryland that I think need to step up. I think Trey Reddick was one of our better sophomores or freshmen last year, and I think a lot of people are going to be looking at him to have a huge year out of the linebacking room, whether it's coming off the edge, whether it's playing more coverage, anything that he's doing, stopping the run. I really like Trey Reddick's game, and we'll see exactly what happens. Keyshawn Flowers is young. I think Kiari James is a guy I'm excited about as well in the linebacker room. And then DJ Samuels, I think, coming off being more of a pass rusher, I think is another guy. But I think there's enough talent there. I think the main question is there enough experience? I think there's talent. I think Locksley's done a pretty good job for the last couple of years recruiting it, getting guys in those positions. I just don't know how many guys you feel great about going out there. But like I say, I hope it ends up being a little bit of trial and error. I think there's plenty of bodies to mix in. Even some of the freshmen that you have, I think you can mix in. But trial and error, where the case is somebody's got to be good. Somebody's got to take it. So we'll see what ends up happening. I can see us rotating a good amount. Locksley likes to do that. He's done that, I feel like, his whole time at Maryland. So we'll see exactly how that ends up happening. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.